Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying my new theme song. I made it. This is a remake of the second dance music song I ever produced. Alrighty. Hello, cats and kittens. This is the camera I'm talking to, apparently. Trying a few new different things today. Been banging around with this technology. But let's start the show. Oh, I need to close the door. Hold on. Oh, thanks, man. Haha, perfect. All right. So, hello, cats and kittens, fuzzy friends and feisty fuckers. It's your friendly neighborhood boneless man. And it's the MrNoBones.com program. Yet another fine, fun episode. And I now have some more widgets installed. I got my viewer count down here. Let's see, am I doing that right? No, other way. Viewer count. My viewer count right here. And I got chat. How do I do it? There it is. There's the chat. I can find it. It's very disorienting. I have my streaming computer over there. And this, yeah, I guess you can see it. But anyway, any hoozle doozle. Hey, Keiko in the house, dropping chats. Sure small. I tried to increase that font size. I will. How that small? I'll fuck with that in a minute. But anywho, any hoozle will doozle. Once again, I am Mr. No Bones, here to share and talk and speak and today we're gonna talk about some life's philosophy stuff. We're gonna talk about, what's going on, just life-wise stuff, as always. But the focus of today is I'm going to talk about my chronic illnesses, what symptoms I have dealt with in the past, and or okay. All right, sorry. We just wasn't sure you could hear me. Whoo, okay. Stop saying Y'all help me. I'm working on the y'alls. So, you got to help me with the ums and the you-knows. As the man who I learned to engineer audio from, to be an audio engineer from, Mr. Mark Hallman, producer of Ani DeFranco's first handful of records and her first gold records. Operator of a legendary Austin recording studio known as the Congress House. And as he would say, the ding-danger and the uh-huh. So that's the only time I'm allowed to say is if I'm going to say the ding-danger or the uh-huh. So y'all help me out. All right. It's lovely seeing you too, Keiko. I love you. Welcome to the show, y'all. Welcome to the program. As you heard moments ago, my new theme song, my new opening theme song, is I Got No Bones 2021 remake, which was, I made it, had the inspiration to finished track in literally like 6 hours or less, which is wild. My second dance music track I ever produced, the second piece of music I ever made with Acid DJ, which was the first music DAW program that I purchased even before I learned to DJ, even before I had my first set of turntables, which were Gemini direct drive turntables. I was already working on making music using Acid DJ 2.0, and my friends were working. The rest of we had a musical collective and as well as a rave crew. We were the Alvin crew with a K, and so the rest of the guys were working in PlayStation Music Maker, which is funny, so great spirally. I was thinking about this and wanting to share about this. I just saw on an interview with some great musical producer. Check out the show Rhythm Roulette on YouTube if you're into DJing or beat making or crate digging or any of the or something that I have a real passion for, which is making music that involves a level of organic randomization, of really not having exactly assurance of what's going to happen when you push a button on the console. Not every button, but I like to have one button that just not exactly sure what it's going to do. And my live techno set under my moniker pseudonym Thomas William is a completely organic techno set built by live on the fly grabbing random 2, 4, and 8 beat slices from music all across the genre spectrum, and really randomized loops to build, and then just getting into, if you know techno, that it's 8 beats and do that 4 times. Every 32 beats, something changes. No build-ups, no drops typically, and just loops, loopity-loop. And I like to get loopy. So I'm tangenting. I digress. The theme song you heard, I Got No Bones. Bad Boy Bill was a common artist in the late 90s, early 2000s in the Texas rave scene. And Bad Boy Bill, one of his signatures is scratching his name over his DJ set. And I was really inspired by that. I wanted to make a song that had my name in it because I had just earned this name, Mr. No Bones. I was just Tommy No Bones Schultz then. I didn't even add the Mr. until a few months later when I started actually DJing. So when I was and this track was right at that moment when I had just gotten my first set of real DJ turntables and a mixer, and was learning to beat match. If you don't know what beat matching is, very quickly, it's the act of manually of synchronizing two turntables that are playing two different pieces of music at different speed, at different tempo, and there's a process by ear where you listen to the turntable that the party can't hear in your headphones, and you listen to the track that the party can hear with this ear. Pardon me. You can compare the two, synchronize them, mix them, create a continuous DJ mix. That's EDM, dance music DJing. And so I, at that point, was still a drummer. I was a heavy metal / punk rock drummer, and my brain was having a hard time comprehending house music structure, because is not really something that you do a lot in that type of drumming, right? So I started learning to beat match, which nowadays, of course, it's all in the computer, and most people, to some degree, use the computer's ability to see the tempo of the music to automatically with a sync button, which, a lot of DJs out there really hate on the sync button. But at the same time, it's really fucking stupid, because manual beat matching doesn't add anything to the end user experience, okay? And really, it just kind of is like DJs jerking themselves off a little bit when you hear their records drift apart, or their, CDs or their MP3s really drifting apart a little bit, and they have to tweak it, because DJs want to feel like they're doing something. And as Deadmau5 said, we all push play. I am a big opponent of DJ ego. I think that all DJs, unless you are a turntablist, just push play to some degree or another. And anyway, I was learning to DJ on drum and bass, learning to beat match on jungle, because the drum patterns matched the drum patterns I understood in my head. I could find that snare on the two and drift them together. Oh, wow, cool. And the era in my life that I stopped DJing, which was from 2005, I suppose, to about 2014. I stopped DJing because I had just become symptomatic with my multiple sclerosis. And quick primer for, if you don't understand what multiple sclerosis is, no more ums, only ohms. Your white blood cells, your immune system, it's an autoimmune disorder. Your white blood cells become malfunctioning. They malfunction to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier, which, if you didn't know this, there's no blood in your brain, and your brain is actually allergic to blood. Fun fact. You learn a lot about the way the body works if you live and manage chronic illness for enough time. Or at least that's been my approach. So, white blood cells cross the blood-brain barrier, and they attack the myelin sheathing, which is, if you think of your nerves like wires in your car, it's like a little rat got in there, a little squirrel got in there and chewed on the wires. And now those wires, the signal that's supposed to go through those wires becomes corroded or interrupted or corrupted, and or just blocked altogether. And so you lose functionality that is associated with that neural network that has been blocked by what are called plaques. Because when you have an exacerbation and the cells attack your brain, you have scar tissue and you have inflammation around the attack site. And then with the type of MS I have, which is relapsing remitting, which is luckily the less bad kind, which means you have attacks and then they stop, and then you have attacks and they stop. Progressive MS is you just have attacks all the time. So I've been able to stave off progressive MS since 2004 when I was diagnosed. And that's when I became symptomatic. And I say that because the doctor said due to the age and the frequency of the plaques in my brain, I had it for 2 years before it became symptomatic. And I was also told that from that predictable level of frequency of exacerbations that I would probably be in a wheelchair in 2 years. I could expect to be in a wheelchair in 2 years. And for the first 4 months, I psycho-emotionally spiraled, and my symptoms got worse and worse and worse. More exacerbations kept happening. And I started paying attention to mixed martial arts at that time, and specifically a fighter from back in the day called Mirko Krokop, who was a well-known face kicker. And I am also a well-known face kicker. It has always been, as soon as I started martial arts, training kung fu when I was, I'd say 15, I guess, I immediately just got good at kicking people in the face. I got my splits in 6 months and just started kicking people in the face. My Sifu Garza, rest in peace, rest in power, mi hermano. Sifu Garza taught me a specific way to load for a kick and then change what kick it was depending on what happens after you chamber the kick. Anyway, I digress. I started watching mixed martial arts, and, the first thing that I said, the first thing that hit me and made me cry when I burst into tears in the doctor's office after they told me, you have this and you're going to expect this, was the thought that I'm never going to be able to do kung fu again. And at that point in my life, I had only trained in kung fu styles. And seeing mixed martial arts, which, I had stopped paying attention to mixed martial arts in the UFC and whatnot. Back in the beginning days, I used to me and the rest of the guys used to rent the UFC fight tapes and watch them on VHS. That's how we consumed the UFC. And, it was still in the no weight classes, minimal rule set, big mismatches, style versus style, etc. And I said to myself, if fate saw fit to give me my body back, that I would do that. I would train every martial art I could with the intention of competing in mixed martial arts. And now I never reached that goal because I realized that that was just the motivation that I needed to start trying. And trying is my neurologist has told me, trying and not giving up is my superpower. That's why I'm able to do things on a medical level that to sum it up, I've specifically been called a medical miracle by 3 different doctors at this point. So I learned how to, and again, inspired by Kung Fu, I took my hands, that my normal functioning hands neural nets had been damaged, but the neural nets for Kung Fu, just for Kung Fu Flourish, I was able to do. And it did exactly what I told it to. And that's when I started to realize, hey, individual neural nets might be damaged or cut off, but I still have ones that are functional. So I can't walk, but I can do stances. And February of 2005 is when I joined my martial arts school that I eventually got 2 black belts at, became an instructor in several different programs, and also was the springboard for my opportunity to train under world-class martial artists of every variety, and to also, as well as military and law enforcement operators as well, and also to do the same for people below me. So students downstream from me, not below me. But I digress. Hey, baby girl, I love you. Thanks for popping in. Look, you're on the chat screen. So, backing up, because the first, I for the 2 years beforehand, again, hindsight is 2020, but looking back is still a bit fuzzy. Quote Dave Mustaine. I was experiencing the invisible symptoms of MS. Brain fog, fatigue, memory loss, but again, only noticed it in hindsight. The day that my MS became symptomatic, I was out at the Texas Renaissance Festival. And if you're not familiar, Texas Renaissance Festival was, probably still is, the biggest Renaissance festival in North America, at least. But I grew up at TRF. I started going out there when I was 14 and went out there most every year. And I woke up from camping and just felt off, didn't felt good. Kind of like the beginning of a flu. You just feel a little woozy and not, something was wrong. But I got up and put on my costume and started walking around the festival and noticed that I had a really weird numbness and like I couldn't pop my thumb. And I remember just walking around trying to pop my thumb. And as I was doing that, my footing was very unstable. I was just swaying. And I kept stepping on my ex's foot. And she kept getting mad at me about it. And I came home from TRF. And also noticed that I had a band of numbness in my right side. And then I really felt like I had the flu. And I spent a week in bed. And when I finally got better, I went to HEB, grocery store, and this was back in the day when you had to sign a piece of paper. They would hand you a pen, right? COVID times. Can you imagine handing you a pen at the grocery store? My God. And your signature, right? Signing your signature it's a muscle memory. It's a reflexive action. You don't really have to think about it. And I wasn't thinking about it. I just wanted to do the thing. And what came out instead of my signature that I recognized was just a squiggly line. And I went, huh? That's weird. And I tried again and again. No, my signature wouldn't come out. And that's when I went, something's really wrong with me. Like, had been, as far as I knew, an extremely healthy person. I'd never really gone to the doctor much, never really gotten sick much. And so the first time going to the doctor as an adult, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And as I said, fell into a depression spiral and continued to have exacerbations. So from that point, my visual tracking, alignment of my eyes went out of order. And so I woke up one morning and I opened my eyes, and you know how you kind of blink your eyes a couple of times for the world to come into alignment and focus. And I blinked and blinked and blinked and blinked and blinked, and it wouldn't happen. Just one eye was up here and one eye was down here. It's just like if you took the two halves of your vision and you slid one up and you slid one down. And if I track my eyes to the right, they would go like this. And as I track my eyes to the left, they would go like this. And so I woke up and started freaking the fuck out. I can't see. And my partner at the time, my ex, calmed me down, and whatever. And then soon after that, I lost the hearing in my left ear. And one of the weird things about losing sensory perception due to nerve damage is that it's not a linear reduction. Okay? In audio engineering terms, it's not like you grab the fader on the mixer and just pull the channel down across the audio spectrum. It's like a scoop filter. And so I could hear really high end, super, just like, and the low sub bass rumble, but everything in between, just the volume was turned, cut all the way down. And that made it impossible for me to DJ. Couldn't DJ anymore because there were no sync buttons. We weren't using computers back then, and I was still using vinyl and a CDJ. I had upgraded from a laptop to a CDJ so that I could play and synchronize and mix loops and music that I made with the vinyl that was the primary vehicle of my DJ performance. So, back in the day when you had to manually beat match everything by comparing what you hear in one ear to the other, I lost that ability. And so, I had to retire from DJing. And it was about that time that I started to try. I started to fight back against my MS. And so I started to educate myself as much as possible. I tried to educate myself as much as possible, not only on the mechanics of my illness, but also things that other people do to manage and cope with this same illness. And then I began the process of A-Bing everything. I would try something for a while and then stop. And then try it again after a couple of weeks and stop. And notice, hey, do I notice any difference in my condition? Can I notice any change in any of the functionality of my body? And at the same time, I started training martial arts that I had been a martial artist and a skilled martial artist and a multifaceted martial artist. But I made the decision to stop partying, to stop any of my vices, to stop most of my social and hobby activity, and to devote my entire life to eat, sleep, train. And I began to notice that anytime I had an exacerbation, like in that beginning era, I had another exacerbation, which became symptomatic, which was my gag reflex became extremely sensitive, and anything that I put in my mouth, I would gag on. So I had to go onto a liquid diet for a while. But what I learned in that era also is that if I don't accept dysfunction as a permanent feature of my physiology, and then figure out a methodology to challenge that system that had been blocked by plaques, that by bombarding those plaques with neurotransmitters, that eventually you will either reroute around it and regain some or all functionality of that system, or break down. Like I've literally, I've done something that medical science, in the broad general sense, still considered at the time to be impossible, was literally breaking down plaques and regrowing new brain cells. Maintained neuroplasticity is what they call that. And I also really began diving deep, which I had always been a meditator. I started into Wicca and natural magic when I was preteen, teen, 13, 14. And had always meditated and even been felt somewhat skilled in energy work and energy manipulation. And so not only did I start training in every fighting style that I could, but I also started training in every meditative, healing, transformational, energy work systems that I could. So yoga, qigong, tai chi were the primary drivers of that practice for me. And I began to realize that the main factor, the main exacerbating factor in my MS is stress and agitation and anxiety. And the antidote is to be in your center, to be as psycho-emotionally calm, present, and clean as possible. And the more I did that, the less often I had exacerbations. And really, my exacerbations were all centered around major life occurrences. Which I could dig into, but I'm not gonna. I'm trying to keep this one at an hour, and we're just over 1:30. So, or we're just over 37. We're at 37 minutes, over a half hour. So, from that era forward, spent all my time getting better, doing better, as well as I possibly could. Training, learning with every under masters. And here's the thing, like 99% of the people on earth who would call themselves a martial arts master, I will absolutely disrespect and would probably still, in the condition I'm in right now, be able to beat them in a fight, period. Calling yourself a master is almost always a function of the fucking ego and is gross. But I've trained with artists and teachers and operators of every facet who I really would consider to be masters of one piece of the bigger puzzle. So this is when I began learning about compensation, about how to, as different functionalities adjusted, to develop methodology that allows me to try to regain function and also develop technique, whether it's physical technique or it's internal technique, psycho-emotional technique, to compensate for whatever symptoms that I have. And this is the era that I started noticing that over the years I kept having new symptoms float to the surface, seemingly disconnected from exacerbations, that my neurologist says MS cannot account for these symptoms. And at that point in my life, I was still very dedicated to very minimal intake of any kind of, let's call them recreational molecules. Alcohol, psychedelics, of course, serotonin dumps, any of the things that I used to play with recreationally, any of the molecules that I used to play with recreationally. I limit it only to the ones that even coffee, man, and you guys know I love me some fucking coffee, but I even stopped drinking coffee. I was really, really dedicated to the only molecules that I ingested had specific therapeutic benefits that are measurable, observable, and recognized by science. So, cannabinoids and lots of different supplements and paleo diet and fucking hard work, right? And I was very dedicated to the idea, the philosophy of brute forcing it, that I can, through the skills and abilities that I have, work with and deal with and live with and even excel with and thrive in spite of these continued, gradually growing symptoms. And this was the era that I restarted my hobbies and my recreations about in 2014, which I said, man, I have been an extremely functional human being for almost 10 years. I should do things. I used to do things. I used to have hobbies and art and output, and I dinked around in Fruity Loops and stuff. I started learning Ableton in that era, but I never really did anything much with it. The one track that I made and finally finished after like 3 years from that era, it's on my SoundCloud. It's called Machen Sie Frau kommt. So if you want to check that one out, maybe I'll play it on the stream. I don't know. We'll see. I got other music queued up. So stop saying God damn it. So one of the things that started happening was a condition called POTS, postural orthopedic tachycardia something or other. And it basically means when you change position from down to up, your blood pressure drops, your heart rate spikes, and you tunnel vision, and you're dizzy, and a lot of people completely faint. And I told that to my neurologist, and he said, yeah, that's not your MS. I don't know what that is. But I didn't go to the doctor for it. I just brute forced it. And I figured out that I was watching a documentary on jet fighter pilots and spacemen. And when you're pulling G's, when you break 4 G's or something, which if you're not familiar with that term, basically that means when you're in an airplane, you're in a really fast jet, and you pull the stick back really hard, and you go up really fast. The multiplying factor on gravity, that's G's. And so when you start pulling G's, all the blood in your body goes down to your feet and you pass out. And this is how a lot of some of the first fighter pilots, jet fighter pilots, died, right? When we built the first really fast jet, people started pulling G's and passed out and nosedive that thing into a fireball in the ground. And so astronauts and jet pilots have to wear compression suits on their lower body that squeeze and help keep the blood in the upper part of your body. But jet fighter pilots, I was watching an interview with a jet fighter pilot, and he said we have this special trick that we do when we're pulling G's. We hang back on that stick really hard. You take a big breath, you clamp down, you squeeze every muscle from here down, and you hold your breath, and you squeeze your diaphragm, and it forces your blood pressure to stay up, your blood to stay in your brain, and you can maneuver, you can fly, not die, right? The main goal of most activities, don't die. But after I left the dojo, which is another story, which I will tell. But long story short, they turned out to be cult members in the Buddhafield cult, and you can go to Netflix and watch the documentary Holy Hell, which is about the cult that my teachers and mentors and abusers belonged to. So I left the dojo, and my psycho-emotional state nosedived, like those jet fighter pilots, into the ground. And of course, exacerbations. I just kicked into, I am just now having one long exacerbation, and shit is just going wrong. And to really understand like how bad of a state I was in, I had just very recently not only been named, granted the rank and title of sensei in 2 different martial arts styles, but I had also accepted the handle, the burn name that I was given by one of my best friends, my bigger brother, one of my twin flames, Jason, Golden Goose. And I had at that point approximately 1,000 students, and from age 3 to 78, and I got to roll around down on the ground with little babies and just laugh and be a part of that like pure goodness. I got to be an inspirational figure, a role model for children in elementary and middle school. I got to help high schoolers deal with this transition through puberty and into adulthood, and help them with whatever they needed to get where they were going, be and do the best that they can. And I got to participate in the last step in the process for most of the youths that I trained, that when they reached the end of high school, the goal was to give them their black belt in a full throttle real world test, which my job in those tests was to wear a what's called the Tony Blauer high gear suit, which is a impact reduction live action ballistic attack simulation suit. So it's not like the big goofy padded suits. It's like you can just be a real person, but I would just come rushing randomly from the student who is testing for their black belt. I would just rush them from their blind spot randomly during their tests and just attack the fuck out of them. And that was my role in giving these black belts. And then these young adults sent them off to college or whatever life followed. And I'm even lucky enough to maintain a relationship with a few of those students, and they're adults and grown-ass adults. Some of them even have children of their own who are in the age range of when I met them. And they still follow me. They still, not like follow me like fucking Pied Piper, but we keep up social connection as well as a student-teacher relationship. And it's one of the things that, it powers me. It keeps me going. Because when I left the dojo and I had a complete psycho-emotional collapse, I had a complete nervous system meltdown, I lost my ability to walk unassisted. And I taught myself to walk again by using the skills and the protocols that I had learned and developed over the years. And then that's when I finally made the decision to start receiving medical assistance. On top of just my MS therapy, which over all those years, I was on and off MS therapies for months at a time. Some of them I was on for a year. Some of them I was then off for 6 months or 2 months or 2 months on, 2 months. I've never been consistent with my MS therapy. And in fact, I'm supposed to be getting my current therapy infusion like right now. But since it's an immunomodulator and it can interfere with vaccination process, like your body's vaccination response, I'm currently not on any MS therapy so that I don't, because it would increase my COVID risk and decrease my ability to get the vaccine when it comes around. So it was about this time that I started on testosterone therapy and realized that I had most likely been low testosterone my whole life. I had just struggled my whole life to build strength and gain weight. And I never really knew how to use my body in the traditional way that you use your body to be strong and do work, to make action. I relied on my innate qualities. I'm sorry, I'm vocabulary burping. My innate abilities to sidestep the need to be really strong and figure out how to use timing, leverage, placement, geometry, and psychology to get the job done. And it's funny, over the years of like wrestling with big strong dudes who I'm like, God, this guy's so strong, I'm trying so hard. And then we're talking about being strong and I'm like, man, you're so strong. He's like, dude, you're the strongest guy I've ever wrestled with. And I'm like, no, I just have good technique. I had really good teachers. I came up under Phil Cardella in the Helson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family, and as most of my time I spent with Phil was private training, but when I came to classes, I always did great against people my rank, and even was able to like get some props from guys a few steps above me, because I was tricky, and I also have what they used to call double jointedness and what they now call hypermobility. And hypermobility is extreme joint laxity. I can, like I said, I got the splits in 6 months. At one point during my youth, legitimately was trying to train to be a contortionist. I incorporated contortion tricks into my dancing style when I was a raver, and it's how I earned the nickname Mr. No Bones. And, all of the funny little spirals, all these little weird, funny coincidences that I feel, one of my things I love to tell people is just notice. Pattern recognition is a innate skill that humans have, as well as the ability to recognize harmony and dissonance. But anyway, I digress. I started hitting the gym again, which, previously I had been a CrossFitter, and I had even reached the level of certified CrossFit instructor. I got my certification, and I started training real hard. And all of a sudden, before I started on testosterone, I had to intake 5,000 calories a day and do strength building, weightlifting 3 times a week, and religiously. And that was to be able to get from 170 to 185. And I'm losing viewers now because I'm fucking tangenting too hard. Goddamn train of thought. Anyway, relearning to walk on my own, but suddenly with the boost of testosterone. And so I got real strong and I got real fit. And that was because, I moved away from the CrossFit training model because after spending enough time in it and seeing peeking under the hood, I realized this is not what they say it is. And it's also not effective in the way that they say it is. That the people who show that are the demonstrators that CrossFit works are genetic outliers. They're freaks. They're people who, all natty, could lift a car whether or not they did CrossFit or not. But the concept of broad areas of study in physical building physical capacity, and it is a valid one, but the sportification and especially the constant drive to more, better, bigger, better, faster, more, most people get injured. 4 o'clock. All right, we've hit the time when I'm supposed to stop, and I'm not done, but I still got a little bit more, so I'm gonna keep going. I realized that that was injuring people, and me especially. I just kept getting injured and hitting these walls where the hypermobility, the joint laxity in my body only would support an X number of pounds in X movement, right? And But I trained real hard. I got real good and fit. Best fitness I ever been in my life. I could do strict pull-ups with fucking 10-pound weight, 20-pound, I think 15. I may have even gotten to 20 around my neck. Supple, just juicy and good. But also noticing that my back hurt more and more and more. And now rewind to when I was 14, a freshman in high school. And I went to Alvin High School, which was the biggest high school in Texas, I think in America at that point. And we served the Tri-City, 4-city area around Alvin, Texas. And all my classes were on one side of campus, and my locker was on the other side of campus. And it's like a 2.5 mile across, campus. It's like 4 or 6 square miles. It's enormous. So I just carried all my books in my backpack. And I had always kind of done that. And I had always been, it was right then when I hit my growth spurt. Because I told my mom when I was like 12 or 11, like, hey, I think I need growth hormones because everybody's getting taller than me. But right before my freshman year, hit the growth spurt, boom, I got tall, lanky. And that's when my back started hurting. I started having this real specific pain in my back. And over the years, my back got better and worse as I would, start a new activity that would damage it and then do an activity that would rebuild and heal it and then learn how to compensate. But being a lanky, flexible, trickster style jiu-jitsu player, I was a guard player, and I laid on my back a lot with fucking 250-pound guys on top of me trying to crush me, holding them with my legs and putting torsion on my lower back. And I got into Kelly Starrett's supple leopard system and myofascial adhesion, myofascial release, foam rolling, and the like. And I also, but it really would hurt my lower back a lot, and I got less and less able to play my guard, and actually, like, I had to step away from jiu-jitsu several times in my life because of my back. Just it got worse and worse and worse, and no matter what, see, I'm like having to work it right now, but no matter what, it just kept getting worse. And I was doing some myofascial scraping, some really aggressive myofascial release work on my subspinous, which is like the little valley right next to your spine, in between your spine vertebrae and your erector spinae, and which I have adhesions, pairs of myofascial adhesions next to my spine at I would say 4, maybe 6 places, or 4 or 5 spots, which I'll explain in a moment. But I was scraping those adhesions. I nicked one of my nerves, the nerve roots of the peripheral nervous system that comes off of the spine, and was suddenly in level 10 pain, okay? And I started off tough, physically tough, like just pain resistance. And over the years of martial arts training, and real martial arts training, not just hi-ya fucking air moves, I'm fucking fighting, wrestling, punching, kicking, all of it. I got a pretty goddamn high pain tolerance, and for the first time in my life, I understood what level 10 pain was completely incapacitated, screaming pain, worse than a kidney stone, okay, which was, before that was the worst pain I had felt. Before that, the worst pain I had felt was when somebody's took these two fingers up to this line and they jammed them into my eye socket so hard that it left their pinky and their pointer finger left bruises on either side of my eyeball, and I had a corneal laceration. I've had 2 of those. Those fucking suck. But again, rewinding, I have always had sensitive eyes, both sensitive to light and sensitive to touch. I've always hated eye drops. I've always struggled with contact lenses. It was many years before they made contact lenses that I could wear comfortably. And when I was, I would say probably in my teens or, very early 20s. I was definitely in my teens. I started experiencing something in the middle of the night that I thought was me getting a carpet fiber or something stuck to my eyelid that was scratching my eye. And I would wake up in the middle of the night with tears pouring out of that eye and just fucking searing pain. And the only thing that would make it feel better is if I would sit under a hot shower, holding it shut and letting the water run over me until it calmed down. And later in life, I was actually had that diagnosed as a chronic condition called RCE, reoccurring corneal erosion. And that just means that there's a spot on my eyeball that becomes, on a cellular level, the connection between your cornea and the underlying tissue becomes weakened in a spot. And in the night, when you, and if you, like me, suffer dry eyes as well, that eye dries out, then that spot on your eyeball sticks to your eyelid, and then when your eyeball moves or you open your eyelid, it rips that chunk of fucking cornea off the surface of your eyeball. Searing pain, horrible. But I eventually got eye drops for it, managed it, just thought, hey, it's just a thing that people get, and it's not related to my MS, but such is life. So I learned how to wake up in the middle of the night with the sensation of my eyeball. The sensation of my eyeball stuck to my eyelid would wake me up, but I would keep my eye perfectly still and then put medicine drops in it and then sit with it closed until it released. And so, just learn to compensate. And same thing with walking. Over the years, as my walking functionality's been affected, I continue to develop compensating techniques. And for locomotion, it's what I have a technique that I call robot walking, which is where I just clamp and squeeze my lower body muscles and I move my feet in a robotic practice motion without using any sensory input, because my sensory input has been scrambled, has been damaged. And that's a common thing with MS, and especially over time, right? Those pathways become damaged, and so you have to learn to motivate without relying on one of your sensory inputs, typically touch or proprioception. And I was also very active in the, starting in 2014, became active in the Central Texas Burning Man regional community. basically based around Flipside, burning Flipside, which was the first regional burn, as well as rabbit soup and burnt soup. And freezer burn one time. But I was going hard, y'all. I was pedal to the metal. I'd figured it out. I was at maximum capacity, both physically and psycho-emotionally. This is when I got involved in the DDP, the Decentralized Dance Party, and in 2015 founded the theme camp, the Boombox Cartel, and became the purveyors of BBC DDPs at in the Central Texas burn community. But I, at Flipside 2016, experienced an exacerbation of something that I thought was new, but Facebook Memories, which is a great tool for me to study the great spiral and the rhythms of life, and to also remember things that I've forgotten, because again, I have very bad memory. I had bad memory when I was a kid, and then I got MS, and now there's holes in my brain. And so sometimes my brain just tries to store a memory, and it falls in a hole. But I experienced an exacerbation of a condition called gastritis, which is an inflammation of the stomach lining. And it was so bad that it sent me to the ER twice at that burn. And that's actually the burn that I was laying in the fetal position inside my bus the day of the DDP I was supposed to throw, and I called and talked on the phone to Gary LaChance, the founder of the DDP, the man who named me a Gary. And, you know, he told me he believed in me and I can do it. And God damn it, every moment that I wasn't in fetal position in bed, I was either sitting at the console and broadcasting, running my radio station and my radio show, or fucking DDPing, man. And we DDP'd, and it was legendary, and it was, you know, a huge part of a lot of people's experience. But it happened again a few months later at Burnt Soup, and I realized, like, this is an ongoing thing. And looking at Facebook Memories, I had thought that, oh yeah, it was bad. I was fucking miserable. That was when I realized, that was when I went and got a fucking scope. It's funny, I just yesterday hung up the printout of the endoscope from inside my stomach. It's over there. Maybe I'll try to show it to you, maybe. But that's when I really realized, like, yo, something's really fucking wrong with me. I went to the spine doctor after I nicked my nerve and was in so much pain, and got an MRI, and he was like, I don't understand how you can walk. Your spine has degraded to the level of a 75-year-old man, is what he said at that point. And he said it's probably due to some kind of genetic defect, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can try inversion, which I sucked at, so I bought a table and I just never used it. Sold it to Goose. Hope Goose is using it. So that was the time, the moment, when, as my old life imploded, as my marriage ended, and the battle for custody of my son began, my sister came to me and said, hey, because my sister also has an autoimmune disorder. She's type 1 diabetic. And she said, hey, I've been experiencing more and more symptoms that that can't be explained by T1D. And she started researching and going to doctors, and she figured out that she, and most likely we, definitely now for sure confirmed, we have EDS. And one of the primary diagnosing symptoms for EDS is hypermobility. The lower tiers of severity of EDS, one of them is called hypermobile EDS or HEDS. I have VEDS because I also, once I learned, I have EDS, I went and got my heart scanned, found out that I also have an enlarged aorta, and I also had damage to my mitral valve, but that's actually healed since I stopped high-intensity training. But still have an enlarged aorta, but just went and got my scans, updates. Everything's looking fine. Everything's stable. But in my spine, what I suffer from is, okay, my tummy, I had for many years just periodically thought that I would get a really bad stomach flu, and then I would post about it on Facebook, and that's how I noticed periodically, oh shit, I've been having gastritis attacks that, when uncontrolled, they advance to a gastroparesis attack, which is when your stomach just says, fuck you, I'm not going to digest food. And so I would get really, 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 really sick and then barf up the undigested food that I ate 12 hours ago or 8 hours ago or whatever. So this is when I realized, I went, and so when I went to the spine doctor, he said, you have uniform degeneration of your spinal discs as well as bulges and bone spurs in your in the C. I'll just show you here, and here. Okay, and the ones in my lower back are the most severe because of my jiu-jitsu days. And so I have bulges to the front, or I should say bulges to the back and bone spurs to the front. So if I hollow body, if I slouch, the bone spurs are shaped like viper fangs. And so they bite the tissue in front of them. And the bulges at the back, arch my back, crushes the bulges. So there is no position for my lower back that's comfortable. And the bulges in my T and C spine are less severe, but they press on my spinal cord. So that can cause varying degrees of effect. But the thing that's really fucking me over is called stenosis, which is the narrowing of the nerve channels. And so most of my spinal cord channels are, minimally affected, but some of them are squeezing and closing off, right, and reducing signal flow through the main spinal cord, but also the small holes that the peripheral nerves exit and go out to the rest of your body are being pinched off and closed and just destroyed. So not only am I in extreme pain from the compression of my spine and all of the other stuff, but I have all of these weird symptoms now that are just creeping slowly, and they are going to keep creeping slowly. So at this point, I have lost the sensation, the proper sensory input in the palm, the entire gripping surface of both hands and the entire bottoms of both of my feet, with extreme sensory loss and distortion in the tips of these three fingers on both hands. So gripping is now weird and difficult because I can't tell how hard I'm gripping something. I have improper sensory input. It's just like TV static, basically, if you had to kind of metaphorically understand it. And I've also lost, at this point, probably 70 to 80% of my sense of taste and smell. It really sucks. And what really fucking sucks is that, again, it's a nonlinear reduction. Only certain, molecular taste sensory ranges are reduced. But at this point, basically the only things that I can taste are sweetness and feet. So say anything savory, smells and tastes that used to be so good to me, now it tastes and smells like the nastiest, sweatiest foot that just got pulled out of a boot. And now that's all I can smell of my own body odor. That's all I can smell of the cooking in the house. And over the last few years, as it has been happening but I didn't notice, I got more and more and more addicted to only eating fast food and really sugary stuff and, just things that I knew were not good for me. But regular food, and this is where I have a comorbidity that causes a real specific problem for me, that the combination of most food either tasting like nothing, just like sand, or feet, that extra sensitive gag reflex that has flared, and then I reduced it to a livable point and just compensated. I just learned how to use my eating and swallowing system with that damage. And it got worse when my tonsils got taken out, which that was one of the events that caused me and my family to become unhoused and live in a bus and an RV for 3 years. That also altered the function of my eating, swallowing system and made it harder. And I had to learn how to flex my throat muscles so that food and water didn't get pushed up into my sinus cavities through the hole that's left when you get a tonsillectomy. So I am now at a point in my life, and this is the information for Bean. So I hope you're still here, Bean. And if you're not, I'll send you a timestamp. No, we can sit down and talk about this too. But basically, I can't fucking eat food anymore. I put food in my mouth. It either tastes like sand or feet, and I gag on it. I can't fucking swallow it. And on top of that, my stomach is extremely sensitive. I can't, anything spicy, just can't do it. Just makes my stomach inflamed. And I already, you guys, promethazine, right? The medicine they give pregnant ladies to help them deal with, or pregnant people to deal with their nausea. Okay? And it's extremely powerful anti-nausea and pain stomach reducer. And I live on fucking promethazine. I take 25 milligrams of promethazine 3 times a day, and then I take 50 milligrams at bedtime, minimum, every day. And when I have a flare, a gastritis flare, if I don't throw 100 milligrams at a time of promethazine at it, it will advance to gastroparesis. And that's again, like I said, that's what sent me to the fucking ER. And so I kind of have to break the rules of inflammation management, right? Because paleo and the related insulin response, insulin spike control eating methodologies like the glycemic index, etc. You know, and I know, if you do know, that sugar is an inflammatory. But at this point, I have to rely on sugar to be able to not choke on the food, on what I'm trying to eat. And it's so much work to make food that I can eat. I can't just grab something out of the fridge and eat it. There's a very small amount of things that I can eat. So what I have done is I've developed a system of supplementation and a liquid diet that 3 times a day with my meds and with my supplements, which one of the supplements that I really rely on is psyllium husk capsules. And so I take 3 psyllium husk capsules plus, vitamins, sups, and a meal replacer shake that has kefir. It has natural dairy and real sugar creamer in it, as well as I have a gut health and maintenance powder. I put chia seeds. I put some dry steel cut oats and a scoop of a paleo compatible basic or a whole food meal replacement powder. And I do that 3 times a day. And then at bedtime, when I take my bedtime meds, I have a can of chicken and rice soup, which chicken broth soothes the belly, and chicken and rice are very easily digestible. And so at this point, that's how I eat. That's my entire nutrition system. And as I identify molecular compounds will be beneficial to me, I incorporate them into my metabolitive process. And one of the, as I said, I continue to rely on medical therapy as well, medical solutions, pain control, pain management solutions, which before, I was just trying to brute force it, but I'm past that line. I had to stop going to Burns because I just couldn't brute force it anymore. Stop saying So funny little spirally coincidence that one of my burn friends recently passed away. His name was Bonobo, and he was a very good friend of mine, and we wore the same kung fu shoes. And it just so happens that the day he died, I was in the middle of transitioning from my old pair to my new pair, to a new pair. And he wore his without laces. And that was the only thing he didn't like about them, was that, they were a little loose. And I had these silicone shoelace replacers that he really liked. And I always meant to send him a pair, but I never did. I send him a set, but I never did. But I'm going to take those old shoes into Austin pretty soon and nail them to one of our burner community has built a memorial wall that the community has been going and adding to, that next time we can burn large scale art, it will be burned. But Bonobo is a monkey, and monkey man. I wrote a verse about him for a song I'm writing, and I call him Monkey Man, which not only is what my friend Poof, who did my Hobbs tattoo, and all my other tattoos too, except this one, he called me Monkey Man. And also our other friend Furball called me Monkey Man. And the other thing that Furball said about me is that he called it my no bones disease. And I just think it's a beautiful poetic irony that it's true that EDS is the cause of my hypermobility, which gave me the name Mr. No Bones, which gave me my legendary face-kicking ability. Literally part of my superpowers is my no bones disease. And I'm also so Keiko, check this out. I call Keiko is Poof's wife in the chat. She's hollering, and I'm still monkeying Poof's phone. I love it. And I call my son Monkey Man, and so there's that connection, right? And like I said, we have the ability to recognize harmony and dissonance, and recognize harmony as the cause of universal beauty. And studying coincidence. I like to say, we live in an infinite universe, and when you plot any two disparate ray vectors in an infinite space, they will eventually coincide. And coincidence, in the scientific term, coincidence, is just a meaningless crossing paths of two things. But for some reason, human beings, when we see coincidence, when we recognize coincidence, and especially rhythmic, pattern-based coincidence. Thank you, Tom. That's you've been there. You were there, man. You were there. You've seen my fucking struggles. The burnt soup that we were together, and you were out there banging on your fucking your anvil, and I wanted so badly to go over there and work metal with you, but I couldn't because my gastritis was flaring so hard. And also I was just in a psycho-emotional bubble due to it being my first burn post-divorce. So, funny ironies and coincidence, right? That not only do I not get to see my monkey man because his mom is secreting him away from me, and I never get to see monkey man and give him his stringless shoe replacers. And just noticing these strange patterns, that is the same way that we decided that there's such a thing as seasons and months and days and whatnot. We will, Tom. I promise, man. I have a chunk of meteorite that I want to blend with some progressively from lower to higher carbon steel, fold them together so that I can make a knife that is imbued with star steel, but that is also not brittle, because obviously meteorite steel is, or meteorite iron is very low quality. But that's at the end of my wand right now that I'm using, because I've gotten back into with being witchy, natural ritual white magic. So noticing these weird coincidences rhythmically over time is part of what has helped me to form my theorem on the life, the universe, and everything, which I call the Great Spiral Theorem. And fuck. I had my point and I lost it one more time. I call it, yeah, it's going to be tough. I like rhythmic action. I like to sit there and just pound two rocks. I'm a fucking drummer, man. I will sit there and fold and heat and fold and heat and add another bar and fold and heat and fold and heat. And it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a lot of work. You know what? I love hard work, and I love hard work that you put your heart into. That's kind of the core of my philosophy of everything is kung fu, right? Do the best and be the best at everything you do. Try. Put your heart into it. Put your same amount of heart into the preparation that you put into the action. But wrapping up, I call this recognition of weird coincidence reading the tea leaves of reality. And I have just noticed that the more that you live your life with heart, gut, and mind unified in a pillar of light, a circuit connecting heaven and earth, and you hold the center of yourself and you clean that space out as much as you can, and you stay as centered, as present, and as for lack of a better word, zen about life, that chaos, the order that exists in chaos presents itself, and things just start falling into place. And this was happening to an incredibly high degree right before my marriage ended. And the last 3 years has been just psycho-emotional torment and repeated trauma, additional repeated trauma, as well as the grieving process of the death of an old life. And it's taken me a while to go through the steps that I need to build my new life. But god damn you guys, y'all, sorry. God damn it, y'all. I am back on my path. That's what this thing is. This is me doing what I was put here to do, which is try as hard as I can to make the world a better place in whatever tiny fractional ways that I can, because I believe that everything is energy. Energy is a wave. Waves fucking ripple into infinity. I'll go deeper into the Great Spiral later. But my last point, this is where I'm going to finish, because this is all about my health and my maintenance, is that finally I have added opioids, which I take tramadol, which is the only opioid that is suitable for long-term chronic pain treatment. I am one of the very small number of people in Texas who have a medical, where they have the Compassionate Use Act, and that's the Texas Medical Marijuana Act. And so I am a legal user of cannabis products with THC, and I am also a legitimate user prescribed of ketamine. And so it's kind of funny, going through all my years of metabolizing different molecules that have different effects on the body, and experimentation with psychoactive compounds in different ways and in different capacities, and which also has informed my theorem, the Great Spiral. So I would say that places me, let's see, it's my legal CBD here. That places me on a very small list of people who legally can medically utilize these psychoactive compounds, what I call sacred molecules. And so, fuck, man, my niece just got tested positive for COVID. That's fucked. My mom and sister are negative, but her daughter fucking positive. God damn it. Everybody, please just hold the name Echo, ECCO, in your heart, and send her every fucking drop of every drop of safety and healing that you can, please. I'm asking for a favor. So that's pretty much it, y'all. That's where I'm at. And my training protocols now are really just based on physical therapy and pain management. And it's really a challenge because movement as medicine, pain management through movement, it both provides relief and it builds functionality, but it also breaks down and have to heal tissues, which is a painful process. So I have to balance the two. My training is, thank you, Tom. My training is very low impact for the most part. I still have a little one of those Wing Chun sandbags on a tree in the backyard that I go out and I whack on, make sure that my fists still got that I still got wrecking balls inside my fists. But I'm not that, I can throw a high kick if I'm warmed up, but my kicks are all going to be low these days. But that's okay, because it's funny, me and Killer Mike both have the same fighting methodology. Is I'm gonna keep it middle school and step on your feet, and before you can react, blow to the teeth. And I love I got a really wicked shin kick into the IT band, and so I like to, and I also have a little like weird front kick to the lower shin with my lead foot that I'll throw. I just like to fuck up people's footwork, because then they look down and I lift my fist and they fall into it and then they fall down. But anyway, it's been great, and I really love when we do this shit. And thank you for joining me for another episode of the MrNoBones.com program. We bring it to a close. God damn it. I swear to God, I'm going to, you know how they make a little like, hey, put a trailer for people who are new to your channel? I'm just going to go through my last 10 live streams. I'm going to chop out all the ums and you knows, and I'm going to splice them together in a rhythmic fashion. So it's just like you know, and that's gonna be my trailer. So that'll help me try to remember to kill those fucking ums and you knows. But as I like to say, y'all, safety third. Stay healthy. Keep it playful. Be yourself as hard as you can. Love. Play. Fight the power. All cats are beautiful, but you can't hug every cat. The great spiral is real, and reality is a weird place to live. I love you. This is Mr. No Bones signing off. Thank you for joining me.
I'm a cat. I'm a kitty cat. I'm a